lebih 20 tahun kerja sebagai kontraktor. Kerja kontraktor. Enggak, gaji met. Anak rumah pajai. Ngau sedak ini ya den.
Que nuestros antepasados también estuvieron acá y que fue un lugar muy sagrado para ellos, fue un cementerio, y ocupar esta tierra es como darle esa paz que por generación nunca se le ha dado.
The reason that I decided to apply for this project because the concept is Mekong 2030, which is something that's happening in the future. So that's interesting for me, how Laos in the next 10 years going to look like, how people going to look like, and the environmental issues that we talk about will be like. So that's challenging for me.
I don't believe any of this devil crap or this religious hocus pocus that's going on.
It may not be what you think.
You came to the Philippines to investigate a human trafficking report. Children are missing, body parts were found.
Marami na rin ako naririnig. People come, but they don't leave. They became like a culto.
We're investigating alleged human trafficking cases. You're here to stop the devil. There are many of them all over the world who believe in the devil's power.
So, Johan, right? You can call me Joe.
Why are you applying for this job?
My wife and I, Khadija, she just got pregnant.
So what's no filter photography?
It was a photography business I started up a while back.
So why are you here?
It didn't work out.
Ao nei to mo we koe long ai tau tupe. Si pore aga ke whakaonga. Whano si liu mai. Whano si liu mai.
Moses said, when I go to school, I won't have any friends.
You know what? Moses is a bloody kakamora.
No, but what I will do is teach you how to use your own beautiful voice.
Vi, you could do amazing things for your people, but you need to cut out all these distractions.
I know what I'm capable of, but you just won't listen to me.
So this is what she learned at that Flats University. How to cause trouble. You have these thoughts.
These thoughts, they're my own, Elvis. My family, my village has sacrificed so much for me to be here, and I'm not going to waste it.
We'll not allow you to take any more from us.
Koe mga hawa ni, ke lele ya koe mamea. I'm tired of molding myself to become who you want me to be. My name is Vaisea. Vaisea lona lote pulusi.
Jim? Is everything all right?
Why?
It's just that the last 2 months' bills haven't been paid.
I lost my job.
When?
3 months ago now.
Jim, they will take your home if you don't pay.
Is everything else all right? What did you do?
Why do you ask?
You seem different.
Difference?
Drained. Down. Is there something you're not telling me? If there's anything at all, you should speak to someone. It'll help. We're not meant to walk this path alone.
Everything's fine.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to this event with the KK International Film Festival, co-hosted with the Borneo Eco Film Festival. My name is Holly Jonas. I'm a volunteer board member with the Borneo Eco Film Festival, and I'm here with Aiden.
Hi, everyone. My name is Aiden, and I'm today as a co-moderator with Holly.
Great, and Aiden has been a wonderful participant with the Young Leaders for Sustainability program as well. And we're happy to be here with everyone this evening. Those who are joining live on Facebook and YouTube, welcome to all of you. Thank you for joining. We are very privileged to have with us a number of wonderful panelists today. We have with us an award-winning Cambodian filmmaker, Kulikar Sotho. If we can bring her in.
Yes, I am
Hi,
on.
Kulikar.
Hi,
We also have
thank you.
with us,
It's an honor to be here.
thank you so much. And we also have with us Dr. Michael Tay, a professional engineer with the Department of Irrigation and Drainage in Sabah. Hi, Michael.
Hello. It's wonderful
We have
to be
Amanda. Yeah, thank you so much for being with us. We have Amanda Lee, who is with DHI Malaysia, a company that focuses on water resources and environmental impact assessments. Hi, Amanda.
Hi everyone. Hi, Holly.
Hi, welcome. Thanks for being with us. And finally, last but not least, our good friend Neville Yap, who is a project manager at Land Empowerment Animals People, and also a team member with Forever Sabah. And he works very closely with Indigenous peoples and local communities in the Lower Kinabatangan and Sagama wetlands, where I think he is joining from right now, or very nearby. Great, so welcome everybody. Thank you very much for taking the time to be with us. So we are going to start actually with some questions for Kulikar, who is our very special guest from Cambodia, who made the wonderful film called Soul River, which is part of Mekong 2030. This is an anthology of 5 short films, each of which presents a vision or sometimes fears for the future of the Mekong River. And as we all know, this is one of the most vital waterways for nature, for communities, for food systems, and so on in the whole continent of Asia. So this is one of the films in the KKIFF lineup this year. If you haven't yet watched it, we absolutely encourage you to do so. It's a fantastic collection of short films, really creative approach, and it's a pleasure to have you with us, Kulikar, as one of the directors. So we wanted to hear from you. If you can just tell us a bit about this film, just in case people haven't yet watched it, and what is the key message or the takeaway that you want viewers to understand about your film, Soul River?
Yeah, I think when we did a research trip on the Mekong, and I got to spend a lot of times with the indigenous people as well as the Cambodian people whose livelihood are on the Mekong and whose life really relied on the river. And I feel that their awareness is very limited. And then they still believe in the lizard tale to tell them the seasonal change of to tell them the natural change of the monsoon season. They still believe that the color of the lizard that changes tell them the dry or the drought or the rain, or the extreme rain. But those are natural seasonal changes, even including the dry and the drought. So they didn't understand, the big impact that is going to get into, to make impact on their life. And so I feel like, it was good for them to believe that, and it may be it is effective way. It maybe it is effective way to believe the traditional way, but that is based on the seasonal change of the nature. What would it mean if the nature change caused by human act? And I want to get that, I wanted to explore that idea, but also and also to bring the villagers to understand that something is going to come and they can't stop it. So they're really for that. But it's also for the city people, but and worldwide, as well. We all need to understand that we really relied on nature, and especially in Cambodia. In Cambodia, 75% of our protein is based on the river, on the fish that is from the river.
Great, thank you so much for sharing that, Kulikar. So we will actually share now a trailer for Mekong 2030, and then we'll come back to you for a few more questions. So I'll ask our team behind the scenes to share the trailer, and we'll be right back.
Que nuestros antepasados también estuvieron acá y que fue un lugar muy sagrado para ellos, fue un cementerio, y ocupar esta tierra es como darle esa paz que por generación nunca se le ha dado.
The reason that I decided to apply for this project because the concept is Mekong 2030, which is something that's happening in the future. So that's interesting for me, how Laos in the next 10 years going to look like, how people going to look like, and the environmental issues that we talk about will be like. So that's challenging for me.
The issues surrounding the Mekong are very important one. Mekong is a lifeline of the many different Southeast Asian countries. And so because this project comprises different filmmakers in the region, so we'll get to see the issues from different perspectives from Thailand, Laos, Cambodia, Vietnam, and Burma, which I thought would be really interesting and a good opportunity for us to come together to look at Mekong as a whole.
I hope that it will make people think whether we allow ourselves to go that far, or is there anything we can do to prevent it? Because the impact that will happen, it will be not just our generation, but many generations to come.
This film might surprise the audience in a way that the Akha people, the Akha tribe, their rich culture, traditional, and their lifestyle, and their lovely characteristic, the tragic story behind their beautiful appearance.
The idea of the film comes from the moment when I read the book Siddhartha from the Nobel Prize writer Hermann Hesse. In that book, then it tells the story of a man who lived in the same time with Buddha, but he still can find another way to be enlightened. So in that book, he was enlightened besides the river when he really focus and watch the flow of the river.
The challenges of bringing this script to life is actually the fact that it is rather an unconventional take on the issues of Mekong environmental problems, and how to not be didactic about the subject and to actually consider it from another perspective, and yet to be engaged with the issue and then actually offer another approach, which is also could be taken up by the decision makers and should be taken up by decision makers with regards to the policy about Mekong.
I understand that a country needs development, and there are already strategies in place. But what I worry the most are the impact on the people, and whether those strategies are enough to protect our livelihood and our environment.
I use film to encourage change because films tell a lot. It goes directly into your heart, your emotion, and then your brain, your eyes, your ears. That's what I can tell. You can put any issue or anything, any story, and that present to audience. That's why I use the film as a medium.
We don't want to blame anybody. We must grow with awareness that we don't kill our own planet.
It is not only about the specific Mekong River, but it's also about a very general river, like every river.
Great. So for anyone who hasn't yet seen the rest of the Mekong 2030 films, please do watch them, sign up for the KKIFF program, and definitely watch them. So again, we're so pleased to have Kulikar with us this evening. She's the director of the first of those 5 short films included in that. And it's so directly relevant to what's happening in Sabah as well. So I'll turn it over to Aiden now for the second question for you, and then we'll continue on from there. You're on mute, Aiden. Yeah.
Hi, Kulikar. Okay, so my second question for you is, after the showing of Mekong 2030, how have people responded to your film, Soul River, and to Mekong 2030 more broadly? Have you been surprised by any responses? Kulikar, you need to unmute it.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm sorry, Kulikar, we couldn't hear you. You need to unmute your...
Okay. How about now?
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Yeah, okay. So yeah, so first the response was actually from my cast and from my crew when we did the research trip, because I bring my own cast to the Mekong River to make them really feel it and connect with the life of the people who live. And then we prep and then we go to shoot, and I think the whole time it's impacting the cast and the crew very, very, very deeply, and to the they are committed 100% to the shooting. The shooting was very, very challenging because on the river, and the river isn't like we are shooting on the land. There were lots of challenges on the river, and we sleep on the floating village and all of that thing. And we had a long every day. But I think the subject is really touched. The environment subject really touched my cast and my crew that they don't want to back down, even those. So I think the response from that was very, very touched for me, because I feel like I feel like and when we are when we screen it, when we premiere in Vietnam, I had one audience from Norway. He was based in Bangkok, but he's from Norway, and he told me that what's happening right now, because he was from the northern Norway, where it was always cold, but now it's hot. It's adverse to find the cold. So the place where it used to be cold, now it's hot. So the climate change is not that not happening, it's actually happening already right now in his view. And so I thought, it's touched the global audience as well. And then when we screen it in the pagoda ground, I mean, you will see the film later, or you have watched the film already. We shot in a pagoda, in a pagoda ground, and I took the film to the community. And I was really happy, because they really feel that they have to contribute to their own environment, because that normally they throw plastic here and there, and water bottle and all of that things, and after the film they were asking what contribute. They asking us what contribute to the environment impact, and then we talked to them about the plastic. Shouldn't be thrown in the river, and we have to be very careful, because we are living on the river that is away from the pollution, the boat engines and all of that things. And they need to live, they need to make business, the boats need to run. But it made impact on them, on the fact that I go back the next time and I don't see a lot of plastic bottles or the plastic bags or all of that anymore. And they really committed to that in that village. So yeah, so I think the response is very good. I don't know how much response in terms of broadly, in terms of worldwide, but so far that I am happy that the film have some impact on the village.
That's excellent to hear, Kulikar. And I think there's one thing to say for sort of audiences in cinemas, but if you're having impact on the communities that you actually worked with in the filmmaking, that's really powerful as well. So we're glad to hear that. So maybe tell us about how you came up with the premise of your short film and why you decided to take this particular perspective versus some of the other directors in the anthology took a more kind of metaphorical approach and so on. So we'd love to hear from you why you decided to take that perspective in particular, and maybe how the experience of making this short film influenced you as a director. Do you think it changed your, potentially your future trajectory in terms of films or choices that you might make to focus more on environmental issues or otherwise?
Yeah, so we were, all the 5 filmmakers were invited to Vientiane and to study or to learn about the Mekong from the Mekong River Commission and Oxfam. And we had a lot of sessions with different experts about the river, about the river, and also the livelihood. And there was one expert about climate change. I'm sorry, I don't by his name, but he's Vietnamese, and we had this one session, and I was very curious and moved and also depressed. It was all kind of mixed feelings to hear his, to learn from him about the climate change. And one thing he said to me that touches me is that the climate change isn't here yet, isn't arrived yet fully, because once it's arrived, it will stay and it doesn't go back. So right now, the extreme rain or the extreme drought is still a natural cause by nature. Where when we arrive at the climate change, it won't change anymore. If it's drought, it will stay drought. It won't go back. And so I was very I don't know how to explain, but it was all kind of emotion. And I think indigenous people and the Cambodian people whose livelihood on the Mekong that relied on the river and that know nothing about things like that. Because I did that research when I did that research, I didn't think about the climate change subject to be the film yet. I was just researching to find a story. But then that was the point that I feel like the climate change isn't here yet. Is maybe something that I would like to focus on, because I think on the Mekong knows nothing about it. If the lizard's tail is still a way for them to understand, to learn about what to. I don't know whether the lizard will be able to tell them anymore, because the climate change or this natural disaster isn't caused by nature anymore. It's caused by the act of human, and that's why I keep that focus on that climate change, and it became the story of the Soul River. What does it mean to me, and that changes me? Yes, every film changes me as a director and as a person, because good films make impact, and it make impacts in different ways and different aspects of life. And I think environmental. I am a person who loves rain. I love nature. I love rain. I love greenery. So, for example, I would listen to rain, the sound of the rain, or sound of the sea, or the sound of the wind, if I get stressed. I listen to those rather than music. So I love nature, and I read a lot about climate change, from different. But when you are actually on the river itself, and you see the drought, and you see the people that suffer from that, I feel the weight on my shoulders. How to tell the story, how to help these people, how to bring the awareness to these people. And I think that it makes me appreciate even more of nature. It makes me appreciate even more. And I want to make more film about nature. I was thinking the other day how I can describe about rain. How I describe this sound of the rain, or rain. How do I describe that? Yes, indeed, it changes me and make me really appreciate nature. Give us all this life and this joy that we kind of taking it for granted.
Okay, thank you, Kurika, for your answers for the third questions. So based on what you say, I really can feel you, because I feel like you are so into the details. Like just what you say, you really wanted to really portray how to shoot about the elements, the rain, and so on. So I can really feel you. And I have watched your film Soul River, and I really can understand the message that you want to portray in your film. So continue on with the fourth question: is how do you think filmmaking can help inspire a sense of connection with and care for nature?
Yes, I think a good film make impact. A good film make impact, and a good film about environment make impact. How do we connect ourselves? I'm sorry, can you get the one question again? That question again, please.
Yeah, sure. I will repeat the question again. So, how do you think filmmaking can help inspire a sense of connection with and care for nature? Yes.
I lost you, sorry.
Oh, you lost me. All right, never mind. I will repeat it another time. So, how do you think filmmaking can help inspire a sense of connection with and care for nature?
One minute, please. I'm just looking at if I can bring the.
Yeah, sure.
So so a good film make impact. This is why I love about filmmaking. It helps change you as a person. We live and breathe in the air. We need water. We need forests. We need rain for farming prosperity. So I hope Mekong 2030 reaches the heart of the people and make great impact on how they should give care to nature. And I think which in return, nature look after us.
Yes, I think that's a very powerful message. And so maybe our final question for you for now, Kulikar, and then we'll turn over to our Sabahan panelists. So as you know, I'm sure far better than all of us, most of the mainstream films that we see about the environment seem to be either these kind of big budget Hollywood documentaries by Leonardo DiCaprio or Al Gore or people like that, or they're big budget Hollywood films about these megastorm disasters, tsunamis and so on. We don't see a lot of the kinds of films that are included in Mekong 2030 in the mainstream filmmaking industry. So what do you think needs to change within the industry to support more nuanced, more diverse perspectives and stories, and particularly about these connections that you have portrayed so well between environmental and social cultural issues?
Yeah, I think everyone has a voice and view. It is up to individual how they want to express their view. My voice and my view can be appreciated by some and not by the others. I think this is, the same with all filmmakers. But the important thing is that we all need to realize that we are coexist with one another. So we need to understand the impact that have on us and the next generations. Next generation, when we take nature for granted or even abuse it.
Okay, thank you, Kulika, for your answers. So I think we can actually move on to also for the next session for the Sabahan, for asking the question towards the Sabahan panelists here. So before we continue, I just want to say to the live audience in Facebook or in YouTube, you guys can start sending in your questions already for our Q&A session later at the end of the Sabahan panelist session. So continue on. We will start with the question for the first Sabahan panelist. So probably Holly, you can start off with the first question maybe.
Great, thank you, Aiden, and thanks again, Kulikar. It'd be great if you can stay with us, as I'm sure there will be some questions for you from our live audience. So coming back to Neville, to Amanda, to Michael, our wonderful panelists from Sabah, we'd like to start with an easy question. What is your favorite river in Sabah and why? Maybe if you want to start Neville and then Amanda and then Michael, I have you on screen in that order.
Okay. Hi everyone, Neville here. I don't actually have a favorite river. I love all rivers in Sabah. And all of our rivers in Sabah have their own unique characteristics, and some have less biodiversity than others, but they are still resilient. Some are extremely rich in biodiversity, and it attracts so many people to just come and see the place. And we also have polluted rivers, but sometimes there is still some resiliency in extremely degraded riverine environments. So I don't have a favorite river actually.
Hi, I think it's my turn, right? Like, first of all, I do have a confessions here. I'm not a Sabahan. Like, is that okay?
It's okay.
That's okay. You can stay. You can stay. Don't worry.
I do have a Sabahan boyfriend. Please let me stay. Okay, so okay, well, for me, I would actually choose Sungai Kedamaian in Kota Balut, simply because of the scenic view of the natural stream, the very majestic Kinabalu mountain as a backdrop, and also the vast paddy field in Kota Balu. So it's like a very interesting land covers that forms the natural habitats for the wildlife. So I think that should be the one that like, should be my favorite. You can pass it to Michael.
Right. Okay. First off, thank you, KKIFF, for having me, and of course, not forgetting Miss Kulikar for the amazing film that you have directed. It's just a great portrayal of a variety of how a glimpse of how human our evolution is actually shaping the Mekong River. So as for me, Holly was just saying it's a easy question, but to me it's actually the toughest because it's all river in Sabah is so interesting and I can't actually pick one. Be it the Padas River from stretching from a Crocker Range on and also for basically what else? Moyong catchment for Kota Kinabalu, Kedamaian. There's starting from the backside of the Mount Kinabalu or Kinabatangan on the east side of Borneo. They are all so interesting and they are very, very unique in their own ways. And be it or in so much so they are so interesting basically. So I can't choose any, but they are all good and I love them all. Okay, I think that's my answer for it.
Okay, thank you everyone. So before I ask the next question, I just want to say like regardless we are Sabahan or not Sabahan, but I think all of us here really love the Sabah rivers, right? Really love the Sabahan nature, and I think that's what matters. All right. So just a joke. So continue for the next question. So I would like to ask you guys to describe the current state of Sabah's rivers right now. What are the key issues that are threatening the health of the rivers here, and what has been addressed to what has been done to address them? So maybe we can start from Amanda. Like I know you work in a private sector, DHI Malaysia. So can you maybe give us your answers in your point of view working in a private sector?
Okay, so basically, I've worked on a few projects in Sabah, so including Upper Padas hydropower dam, the Moyo, the Lido flood mitigations as well. So different areas have different problems across Sabah. So I would say, well, the main is it the current state. So if I have to pick one, maybe perhaps it's got something to do with the loggings. So with the deforestation, it definitely contributes more sediments into the river, and that's the one that I think should be closely monitored by different government organization and even the NGO. So because it's just too vast topic, so I might pick that one. Yeah. So should I pass it to someone, Neville?
Maybe we can pass it to Michael first, since Neville start because of unstable line just came in. Later, I will address the question again to Neville. So right now, maybe we can have Michael to answer the question, since we know Michael is a professional engineer from the Department of Irrigation in Sabah here. Maybe you can give us your answers in the point of view of the government.
Okay. My point of view is the key issue that is threatening the health of the river has a lot to do with more towards hazard or pollution. Because be it as it may, I think this is still the most threatening thing for humankind. The contrary to a lot of popular belief, changes in land use can be a good thing in a certain sense, because it does bring down sediment. It does create a whole host of chaos to the whole river system. But we do have to understand it's also a natural process for the nature to create land. That's something I think it's often being misinterpreted in a certain sense, because that's some of the natural process that we actually have to adapt and adopt. But as I say, I could go on and on about this, but in short, the most threatening thing is mainly on river pollution, mainly a discharge from industrial areas that is not treated properly, and it can result in a lot of E. coli that is dangerous to the biodiversity downstream. All right, that's all for me.
Yeah, Michael, there's another question. Is there any measures or strategies being done by the government to address the pollution issues that you just mentioned now?
Yes, in fact, it is not really under our purview, but I would say on behalf of the government, yes, there is policy that's in place on the discharges of pollution, mainly measured in terms of E. coli percentage that is discharges into the river system. Well, not only the river system, but also to the ocean as well, for the water body, basically.
Okay, thank you, Michael. So now we'll continue to Neville. Welcome back, Neville. Yeah. So just now I was asking Amanda and Michael about, which is also a question, the same question that I'm going to actually direct it to you. So the question is, how would you describe the current state of Sabah's rivers, and what are the key issues threatening the health of rivers here, and what has been done to address them? Like, from your perspective is, we know you are working under communities and civil society organization. So in your point of view, what will be your answers for such questions?
Okay, yeah. First of all, I would like to agree with Michael Tay that sediments are actually a good thing, but too much is not good. But some sediments it supports the nutrient cycle of rivers. Mangroves need sediments to continue to grow and build more land. Well, for me, the current state of of the rivers here in our state is areas especially riverine areas, especially that is inhabited by indigenous communities, are still well maintained, and it is still resilient to change because of the traditional way of livelihoods and their respect to the place that they inherited from their ancestors. they still have control over those territories. But in places where communities lose control over the place, or they are not engaged meaningfully by decision makers, that's where you will lose out. I mean, rivers will degrade. You have poor decision making on land use that causes massive environmental degradation. Um, Thousands of communities who are dependent on rivers suffer massively in the 80s because of rampant logging. And a lot of communities are, of course, awareness is still a key thing, but it's a key issue, but it's definitely growing in the state. People are, especially the youth and women, they are particularly interested, to learn more about what's happening in their rivers and learn how their voices can reach the government. So you see that in the last 2 decades at least, communities themselves are monitoring the quality of water that's flowing into their area. They have to struggle a lot just to raise a point to decision makers. Maybe 10 years ago, when you have communities reporting an issue of pollution, they are not treated fairly. I don't blame the government because, as a part of a nation building process, even governments, and I mean in brackets, duty bearers, right? The people are the right holders. Governments are duty bearers, and duty bearers have to build their capacity so that they can be more effective in protecting the rights of the rights holders. When I talk about rights holders, it's the citizens of issues with rivers it's been going on. There is something to celebrate along the way, but the journey is still long. On both sides, people who enjoy the ecosystem benefits and the people who are entrusted to ensure those ecosystems are well maintained have to continue to learn and build their capacity, so that we will become a better nation. For civil society organizations, what we mostly been able to do is just try to meaningfully engage people, not just communities, but including government as well, and try to facilitate a way so that processes such as this can be empowering to both sides, where communities can learn from scientists, academia, and government, and then vice versa. The most interesting thing these days is community-based monitoring initiatives. We are also learning how to do it and deploying those tools so that communities can monitor the state of their rivers by themselves. And we are really interested to also work with fishermen who inhabit downstream, in estuaries, who are impacted by human activities upstream. What else? Yeah, and then just I just like to repeat this, facilitate an empowering process with all stakeholders. We need to continue to do that so that one day our rivers will become like you look at other developed nations, they realize that they've screwed their rivers so much, and now they are spending so much money trying to recover those ecosystem. That's all from me, I think. Thank you.
Thanks, Nevo. And I think it's an important cautionary note that was highlighted in Kulikar's film Soul River and in Mekong 2030 more generally. And just a reminder to everyone who might be watching on Facebook Live or YouTube, please continue sending in your questions. We will get to them in a few minutes after this next round. So I'd like to turn the next question to Amanda, who is from DHI Malaysia. And as you know, one of the main issues that was raised in the films from Mekong 2030 concerned the construction of dams, and primarily for hydroelectric generation and drought and flood control. So there are lots of heated discussions about proposed dams in Sabah, including Papar Dam, as you sort of indicated earlier in your introduction. Do you think we need large dams in Sabah? And what maybe all the alternatives that could be less harmful to nature and to people who depend on the rivers? If we look at Kulikar's film as a kind of cautionary note, what could we learn from that for Sabah?
I think first of all, it's actually do we need large dams? Is actually I would say it's a case by case thing. So let's say in Sabah we sort of know that electricity being cut off has happened quite often. So that is something that we need to solve anyway. So if you build a large dam for hydropower, with a sufficient infrastructure, I don't see that as a bad thing. For example, in Davao, they do have a water stress issue, and then they're building a water supply dam in Davao. So I think, and they add on top of the water supply, they also add flood mitigation functions on top of that. So I think I can see that as a need to build a large dam in certain area, not all the area, but certain area. I think it's actually necessary. So for Mekong, from my point of view. So the flood water does benefits like the plantation area. So every year, if you build so much dam and disrupt the natural process, and then the plantation area didn't get replenished, the nutrient didn't get replenished, of course it affects the life of the peoples, of the farmers over there, for sure, even the fishermen in Mekong rivers. But for example, because I work on the Upper Padas hydropower, so based on the topographic, the shape of the dams and the topographic features of the dam, the inundation area is actually not so big. I would say that the risk is actually manageable in that sense. And I would still think that hydropower is one of the better solutions to generate power and supply to, across the Sabah state. And as I know that there is also a cable built across I can't remember clearly, it's like from Lahad Datu side or from Davao side all the way to the Upper Padas to link the grid up together. So to me, it's really it depends on the needs, and it's not necessarily a bad thing altogether. On how to reduce the harms to the natures and also to the people that depends on the river. To me, in my opinions, then we have to go back to the environmental flow. So some of the standard, if they go, using the simplest way to estimate the environmental flow is at 10% of the average flow, annual average flow. So that might not be, that's certainly not sufficient, not adequate to address the needs of the water downstream. So a more detailed studies on how much environmental flows to be released from the dam is actually is actually necessary. So biologists, botanists, and other experts should be part of it to come up with, like, maybe different time of the years how much you actually should release. But when we come back to the hydropower thing, it's like they detain the water for a short time, and then they basically release the water for power generation. So I would say, if it's not a cascading dam situation in Mekong, I think I would think the impact is actually manageable in that sense. Maybe not lots of people likes the answer, but that's how I feel about it. That's all from me.
Well, thank you, Amanda. So now we're gonna continue for the next question to Michael. So like in some part of Sabah, like for example in the Mekong River, we see like the flooding are getting more and more often right now, and we also can see that the water are getting harder to be or no longer absorbed naturally into the ground. So why is this actually happening, and how can we actually address this problem?
Okay, Aiden, right? Thank you for the question. Well, why is this happening? Well, it's always happening. The thing here is flood has always been happening. The kind of the ironic situation here is because people actually build and develop in the floodplain, so they naturally it's rather than sort of living and adapt to it. It's something new because we do the population tend to live downstream, or they favor moving downstream. And to answer your question about absorbing the water is sort of not, I would phrase it this way, the water is sort of not retaining upstream much enough, or are not having a detention, sort of like a natural detention more enough, is because there's changes in land use upstream. Your question about Mekong River, funny enough, I was just driving down that catchment like 2 hours ago, and I literally can see a runoff, turbid runoff that is just flushing down at the side of the road. That's not really due to a big thing. It's just because there is a huge vegetable farm that it's actually developing and expanding at the cliff of the Crocker Mountain. And that has contributed to such a big runoff that I could actually see it running down. And not to mention, of course, there is naturally a very famous water supply dam that is in that particular catchment as well. But I think the main contributing essence here, it's climate change. It's not necessarily new as well. The climate has always been changing. It has been changing for thousands of years. And this phrase has been dangling in people's mouths, talking about climate change as if it's such a new thing. It's not. It's just a process, and countless research has already looked into this. It's a cycle that we have to go through. It's sort of the planet is sort of try to reset itself in one way or another. Why we feel that the flood has occurred more often is because the rain intensity has been raised, and in a short period of time. Not necessarily we have more rain. It's just the intensity has been higher and in a short period of time. That's why our infrastructure is not built to cope with it. That brings us to the question of adapting and adopting this natural cycle. It's the problem is not about what nature throw at us. The main thing or the main answer here is more towards how well we can adapt and adopt. The better we can adapt to the change, the lesser of a so-called impact we might be facing, or sort of we might be bringing up. Just like many developed countries, in a way, I think what Dr. Amanda has been doing is a state-of-the-art platform in trying to not only mimic or model what has happened before or what's happening now, but is also to predict what's going to happen in the future. We should also use this state-of-the-art processes or analysis method to sort of predict what's to come and what are the impact of our doing. And hopefully we can be one step ahead of what nature can throw at us. I think that's about what I can answer for my question. Did I miss anything here? Yep, I think that's all for myself. Thank you again for the question, Aidan. I think I'll just pass it on.
Thanks, Michael. It'd be interesting to hear Mother Nature's response to thinking we can stay one step ahead of her. Huh? I don't know about that, but so our next question is for Neville, to bring in a grassroots perspective to some of these changes that Kulikar's film also shared. So in Soul River, her film from Mekong 2030, it mentioned that seasonal flooding is a natural part of the Mekong River's ecology. And I understand this is the case for the lower Kinabatangan as well. So we'd love to just hear from you briefly. What are some of the impacts of seasonal flooding in the Kinabatangan, and how do local communities there adapt to it? And maybe what are some of the changes to the health of the river that communities have observed in recent years?
So floods have definitely impacted people, including Kinabatangan. But for as long as I have studied and learned from the communities and living there with them, in the last 100 years, floods have always been very stable, that annually, and communities have adapted to it because they actually embrace floods as part of their way of life, because the floods is it's a time for the river to replenish itself with nutrients and for fish and prawns to spawn. But sometimes you have events where there's more than usual floods, which is closely related to climate change. But sometimes floods is not it doesn't benefit the community when the upstream is being heavily disturbed. So throughout the 60s and the 80s, logging was so rampant, and it forces communities to adapt to a new way of livelihood. They have to stop planting paddy, for example. Too much, what's my point here? So natural flood is good for the people and the environment, but human caused floods is the major problem. And since 1981, there hasn't been any bigger floods bigger than the one that happened in 1981. 1997, after El Nino, there was a major flood, but it was nothing compared to the one that happened in the 80s. But but now in the last 20 years since then, communities are worried, because floods never came in some years, and it causes an imbalance on the ecosystem. Communities are worried about saltwater intrusion, and some riverine habitats are not well adapted to saltwater, and some of these sensitive forest habitats are disappearing. And people are praying for floods people are praying for floods because of prawns. Communities are now they are even more worried because prior to the whole thing about certification of palm oil, there was a lot of development of palm oil in areas where palm oil were not supposed to be grown at all, and it causes heavy metal leaching into sensitive brackish water environments, and create a dead zone where marine aquatic habitats are not able to go up that river and spawn and go back down river. That's another thing. But another thing is, there is more and more people now, and there's more fishermen than ever. And the last remaining, productive fishing areas, including mangroves, is heavily contested. What else? Yeah, so it's definitely changing, but just hoping for the next flood to come. But yeah, I think I'm done with that question. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Neville. So before we continue for the first questions of the Q&A, I think I need to say something because generally to us all, we always associate flooding as a negative thing. But after today's webinar, I kind of like what I get from all the experts and also the peoples here, the panelists here, like we realize flooding is also very important and also a natural parts of the river system. So I think the takeaway message from here is like we need to develop ourselves sustainably together with the rivers to avoid the impacts of the flooding maybe. Yeah, I guess that's at least what the takeaway message that I could get from here. So continue on with the first questions of the Q&A. We have questions from YouTube. Someone asked why, I think this is mainly for Kulikar. I think it's for Kulikar. Someone asked why did the Mekong 2030 filmmakers decide to make narrative rather than documentaries about the river? Yeah, Kurika probably can answer the questions. I'm sorry, Kurika, we can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, can.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, I was just saying that actually a very good question. maybe it's more likely a question to the producer than to me as a filmmaker. But I think I think you know I'm making a documentary. I'm sorry. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Hello? Yeah. So I think documentary is also a good way to tell, to tell what's happening. Actually, it's a very good way to tell what's happening on that. But I think the narrative is also a way to express not just from the point of view of the livelihood on the Mekong who are directly impacted, but it's also the view of the filmmaker as well. So it's like two different views. So one is the receiving and one is the one that's seeing, and how you make that seeing and receiving as a way to tell the story that can reach the audience in the form of the native, in the form that is from two perspectives, if I can, from two perspectives.
Great, thank you for sharing that, Kulikar. Another question that we had from a YouTube viewer, Joshua Liu, I think was maybe in response to something that Michael had shared earlier about, this notion of climate change being kind of a new term, hot on everyone's minds and so on, but there has been climate change over many, many years, generations, millennia. However, Joshua is saying, surely the current climate change scenario is not the same as in the past because of the huge impact that humans are having. And I know this is, pretty sure this is true, and that the Anthropocene is now recognized as a new kind of geological era where it is definitively human activity that is causing these massive climatic and ecological changes. So just wondering if you have any further comment on that, or if you think that the climate breakdown that we are seeing now is part of a so-called natural cycle.
Okay. My point of view about this is the climate is changing. Undeniably, human activities is part and parcel of that contributes to the climate change. That's undeniable as well. However, this is also due to our human population that's growing. So that's why we are living a bigger and a bigger mark on the planet. So I think it's more towards a chicken and egg thing. They both play a huge part in each another, being the growing population as well as the climate that's always changing. But then the main action here that we can do is to adapt and adopt. That's more. It's more towards more action than just contemplating on things. Yeah. Okay, that's all for me.
Thank you, Michael, for your answers. So, continue with another questions. Yeah, I think it's also from YouTube as well. I think it's also, yeah, from somebody from YouTube. Yeah, I'm sorry, I could not found who is this person, but yeah, this question from YouTube, I think he or she say like, since we now already have the films like Mekong, wonderful film like Mekong 2030, and I think this question is very interesting because he or she asked, should we also have a film about our rivers as well in Sabah to showcase like the impact of our human activities to our the impact of our human activities? Probably like we can direct the question to Neville, probably. Yeah, Neville.
Can you repeat the question? Sorry.
Yeah. We now have like wonderful film like Mekong 2030, and somebody this person, sorry, Eric Lim, JC, he asked like, should we also do a film about our rivers here in Sabah as well, like to showcase the impact of our human activities?
Yeah, it's actually a very good suggestion. Filmmaking has been such an effective tool for communities to get their voice out there. Communities that I've been working with have been part of the Borneo Eco Film Festival for some time now. A lot of these community members who are, marginalized, lack of education opportunities, and they came from the poor, are able to master filmmaking so well and are continuously, developing new stories. And we hope that, in years to come, they, a story about our rivers uh, should be a very interesting story, to attract the attention of everyone in the state. Yeah, that's all I have to say about that.
Maybe as a follow-up to that, Kulikar, would you be willing to help some Sabahan filmmakers after this event with understanding the process of making Mekong 2030 and maybe how Sabahans can make their own Sabah 2030 film?
Yeah.
Yeah, I am sure the Malaysian or Sabahan filmmakers will has a lot to realize their own voice and their own stories to tell. And we can work as collaboration, or we can work as as collaboration or as a guidance. I am happy with that, but I think it's important to tell the stories of your own heritage. I am happy that I am involved with this Mekong River that is part of other countries, not just Cambodia, but it's part of Mekong is part of Tibet, it's part of China, part of Thailand, Laos, Vietnam, Myanmar, and all of that. And I am very proud to be able to tell the story of my own heritage that is a part of heritage of other countries. So I think all filmmakers, documentary filmmakers, and everyone that has the voices should just tell the stories of their own heritage. And a river is so important. It's a tangible heritage that we can just reach, but needs to be looked after and needs to be told.
Yeah, I think that's so true. And I think that's something that I know both the KKIFF and Borneo Eco Film Festival care a lot about, supporting local filmmakers and local storytellers to share their perspectives as well. So that's wonderful. I think we'll take you up on that offer. So maybe as a final question from the audience, this is another one from Eric Lim. So thank you, Eric, for sharing these excellent questions. So Eric was asking a two-part question. We can only share part of it on screen. The first part was saying, should we also talk about the illegal logging issue, which is heavily polluting our rivers? And he feels that we, community and authorities as a whole, do not have enough awareness and urgency to resolve these issues. So if any of the panelists, that can also be Kulikar, if you wish to comment, if you have any particular view about to what extent logging issues and logging in relation to the health of rivers is being sufficiently addressed in Sabah.
Oh, I am not sure I can give an answer related to the river in Sabah. There are a lot of expertise over there. I have not been there, but I mean, river in general are impacted. I mean, our rivers here cause floods, and some of the floods caused by the logging, that's for sure. and logging is an issue that is not seriously addressed. And I think it's part of the damage of the river, the floods. So I think it's erosion, yeah, of the river bank. And the logging is benefit nothing to the livelihood of the Mekong. And they don't have a word. So I think as a filmmaker, you from each country, you have the responsibility to also tell the story of this logging that is part of damaging of our environment. It's a very sensitive issue. It's a very sensitive issue, and I think a lot of it, a lot of filmmakers are kind of thinking how to tell that story that is make impact, but without, being so confronted.
Well, thank you, Kulikar. So right now we come towards the final question for everyone. So this final question from us is, what is your greatest hope for the future of rivers? Either it could be in Sabah here, or either it could be in Cambodia. So and then what do you think we need to do to ensure that the vision come true? Yeah, maybe we can start from the Sabahan first, Michael.
Right. Thank you again, Aidan. That's a question that's it's such a big question that's to answer, but I'll try. Well, I would say try to maintain it as natural as possible, because the more hard engineering or the more hard measures that we actually try to do to it, initially is just transferring the issue elsewhere. Not necessarily making it worse, but just to transfer the issue elsewhere, so that sort of like make the issue to be amplified in a certain area and solve the another. So that's my take on it. All in short is, yeah, just try to keep it as natural as possible and let nature take this course. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Right. I think probably someone else can answer more about this.
Okay, thank you, Michael. So I think we can have this same question to Amanda as well. What's your greatest hope for the future of rivers here in Sabah, or maybe in Malaysia in general? And what can we do to ensure that vision comes true?
I think I do agree with Michael in the sense that to maintain the river as natural as possible. So I think it goes back to the studies when being carried out for each of the river basin, what's their needs, what's their problems, and how we actually going to tackle it. So let's go back to the Sungai Kedamaian, my favorite. So last year there is a tender coming out for integrated water resources and flood mitigation study that it didn't take off. So that somehow is something that I wish that it actually take off, because we look into several problems altogether. The several problems facing that particular river basin that should be solved. For example, the flood problems. I think due to the earthquake event, there's a lots of sediments coming down, and then the riverbed becomes shallower, and then causing the flooding downstream. So I think those are the things that we should look into. And also they do have I think, if not mistaken, they do have a water supply issue as well. So I think it's every time when you look into there's no one solution that solve all the problems. So basically you still focus on each of the river basin and find out what's their problems and how we can deal with the issues within the river basin. Of course, when we say that, we try to treat it as a whole. It's like from upstream to downstream. It's like try to solve it in a holistic manner. So yeah, that's what I'm gonna say. Thank you.
Thank you, Amanda. So next, Neville, how about you? What's your hope for the rivers here in Sabah and how to ensure that vision came true?
Yeah, well, I do hope that there will be plenty of fish again one day as a start. But I agree with both Amanda and Michael. We should just keep it as natural as possible. Even the at the federal level, they are also starting to realize this, and they are coming up with projects that to do something like this. What if we just maintain rivers as natural as possible? It's challenge. It's quite tough because in some places there's a lot of damages that is being done. Um, but we just have to keep working at it, and just ensure that all stakeholders can effectively come together. Recognizing each of their strengths, and weaknesses, and support each other, and share that one vision, to restore a landscape, or maintain a landscape, especially rivers. Yeah, that's all for me.
Okay, thank you, Neville. So last but not least, Kulikar. So this question is also for you as well. Maybe like you can tell us about your hopes about the rivers, maybe not only Mekong but also other rivers in Cambodia, and how you ensure that the vision that for your hopes would come true.
Yeah, I think, have you heard of the Lesab, the greatest lake in Cambodia? So the Mekong River and the greatest lake are feeding, Mekong River feed the great lake in the rainy season, where the phenomenon of the river reverse and bring the earth into the lake, and that gives a unique, what do you call, fertilization to the earth, and that's why the fish is so good and so diverse here in Cambodia. So my hope is more about getting people together to understand that river is our life. Nature is our life and river is our life. I think, we have our specialists here who focus about the technical side, that how we can help the rivers. And I think on top of that, we need the people to understand that everyone, like one vision, like Neville is saying, one vision. And only when we have this one vision that we can achieve the technical aspect to help the river.
Great. Thank you so much, everyone. That was our final set of questions. We'd like to really thank all of you from Kulikar, from Cambodia, Michael, Amanda, and Neville calling in from different parts of Sabah, my co-moderator, Aiden, who did a wonderful job, and everyone who was watching live on Facebook and YouTube. Thank you so much for being with us and for sharing the excellent questions. We really appreciate everybody's time and energy and care for all of the rivers that we all care about so much. And thank you to KK International Film Festival for working with us and allowing us to co-host this session with you from Borneo Eco Film Festival. If you haven't yet signed up for KKIFF, we really encourage you to do so. Go to kkiff.com And there are several amazing films, several more webinars coming up in the next few days. Please check it out. It's only 15 ringgit for many, many, many hours of entertainment and learning. So if you're bored in some form of lockdown, check it out. And we also have with Borneo Eco Film Festival upcoming events around Climate Week later in September. So check out our website as well, beff.org.my, and support your local film festivals and filmmakers. Thank you everyone for joining, and take care. We'll see you soon, hopefully.
Thank you.
Right, thank you guys.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me around. Thank you so much.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Bye.
Thank you.